like a Tristana pick that eUnited has been doing so, or has gotten a lot of it so that you are stronger than your opponent when you try to brute force around objectives like the Baron fight, which is what eUnited was doing with Licorice's lead on Shen in game number 2.
And to be fair, it was more times than not eUnited who was picking the split push comps. So they had Licorice on Camille game 1, game 2 they have the Shen pick, and they usually don't win due to their split push, but it does give them a little bit extra pressure and forces what feels like GCU into some poor decisions, or at least not being able to execute on a good decision. United split push, while not super effective, does seem to be giving them a small advantage versus eUnited or GCU this series, and we'll have to see if they try and force Licorice off the Camille's and the Shens and things like that and onto more things like that Cho'Gath.
Well, this time around with Gold Coin United opting to be on the blue side, they've changed up their bans a little bit. Caitlyn is still going to be a mainstay. The LeBlanc, though, has become into a Phase 1 ban, and they're going to wind up banning the Lulu away from Zeyzal. So saying, hey, the Tristana might be the problem, but the Zeyzal buffing up whatever AD carry we're going to be putting definitely on maybe the M1 that we need to ban away.
And I kind of like that ban. It's kind of preemptive in the sense that, okay, well, we're going to take Tristana, and then if they answer with Cog Lulu, we didn't really shut down the late game at all. So I don't mind this idea. The only problem is there's still a lot of supportive, Ardent Sensor building champions down there. You can go with a Nami, you can go with a Karma, you can go with a Janna. And instead, yes, the Kalista being left up here by eUnited.
So that means that the Gnar ban, the Kalista's left open, and champion that does extremely well into Kalista, at least in the lane phase, is the Tristana. So GCU saying, oh, the Kalista's open, that's super high priority for us, we're going to take that. But they also take the other side of the equation off the table by grabbing the Thresh.
This is a bit of a gamble here on eUnited, especially since if they take this Jarvan, they do not actually end up with the Tristana pick in the early game here. So there's a chance for GCU to force a situation where eUnited should probably take their mid laner with this last pick in the first phase, and then they can't grab the Tristana. We'll have to see. But either way, even though the Tristana does fine into the Kalista, I mean, you're still risking giving a Kalista up and the immense early game power that comes with that champion, the plays that you can force.
Now, looks like they will actually snatch up the Tristana immediately, though, but they're already giving away a Corki pickup here for Gold Coin United, so they're again signaling the priority of, hey, we're taking our mid laner here, we're going to try to focus on banning out GBM. And they also get the Alistar with the Kalista, which is still a very good combination.
Right, exactly. By taking that Corki pick there by GCU, now they're going to be able to ban away things like that Cassiopeia, grabbing the Galio ban there as well. Don't want to fall prone to one of those dive super tank comps that you see. And Fly is going to end up hopefully in a little bit better matchup than he's had to deal with. eUnited on the flip side targeting down on those junglers as they already have the Jarvan taken. That can still flex up to the top side. That's one of the great things about Jarvan, so we'll have to see. GCU instead going with the Shen ban, allowing GBM to get Cassiopeia for his second game in a row if he decides to go for it.
Yeah, so that, of course, means that also kind of pigeonholing the Jarvan into a role now, saying, like, hey, we're going to ban the Shen away. If you want to put Jarvan in the top lane, that's fine, but now, you know, you've also banned out junglers for yourself, so then you're pinching down onto Dandy's champion pool. But he busted out jungle Poppy last game, so he's content to pretty much play whatever his heart
desires.
Yeah, who
knows Dandy's champion pool right now if the Poppy's coming out as basically his third option there.
Yeah, and we do see the Cassiopeia picked up by GBM, so that historically has a decent matchup into the Corki, and we've seen GBM already take that one onto the Rift just in the previous game. Didn't deal the most damage on it, but didn't die a lot either, which is something that, you know, was difficult for GBM last time these two teams met in the finals.
And with the fact that eUnited has not taken their top laner yet, GCU go and grab themselves the strongest melee top laner in the game, for the most part, in the Renekton champion. Going to be able to force a lot of action. It looks like eUnited are going to take the Poppy. Double flex here. Normally I would say that's a Poppy top, but now I don't know for sure.
I don't know for sure either. I'm assuming it's going to be Jarvan on the top side to try to brawl with the Renekton. We've seen him being picked into the Renekton during the stint of time in the NA LCS, and Dandy going onto the Poppy seems to make a little bit more sense considering how he was kind of the one that was flash engaging, so he can now team up with Licorice trying to dive into that backline. A little bit different than they were with the Shen, but it's still very reminiscent of the team comp they had previously. The only big question now is Thresh does not build Ardent Sensor. Thresh does not necessarily buff up the Tristana. Thresh keeps the Tristana safe and is able to make picks and plays happen. How has this changed the play style of eUnited despite the team composition and the two carries being very similar?
It's actually not too different overall, especially because we end up with, like you said, Jarvan in the jungle. A little bit more aggressive here. I actually do kind of prefer Poppy in the top lane versus the Renekton. It is something that can go very, very bad for the Poppy. if you let it kind of get out of control, but you have some tools to deal with the Renekton. You can put your Steadfast Present up to deny the Slice and Dice, those kinds of plays. You can ult him off you when you both hit 6. If he pops his ultimate, you just pop yours and try and disengage that situation. So it is something that if you don't let him abuse his Cold and Meat healing and stuff like that, you can actually get out of that not too bad. And that allows Jarvan, who is a much more aggressive early jungler, to try and net some of those hyper carries some advantages in the early game, whereas we saw Poppy be pretty much a non-factor.
Yeah, so we are in game number 3 here. It's match point, actually, for eUnited going up against Goldcorn United. They brought MadLife back into the lineup, and we'll see what other adjustments they've done in Champion Select. They got a Kalista, they got an Alistar. He's already dead because that's how you bind on Kalista to start the game off, so things are looking great.
And on the flip side, GCU not only on match point, but tournament point here. After they have historically never lost a series to eUnited in the playoffs or in the promotion tournament. So this is one hell of a way to break a mental block for eUnited if they're able to 3-0 GCU here.
And they would wind up moving on to the final match of the final promotion tournament tomorrow if they're able to seal the deal with a victory here. Even if GCU subbing in MadLife steals a game away from eUnited, they have to once again, as you mentioned earlier, complete a reverse sweep, which is something they failed to do against P1 yesterday, even though P1 looked like that. I mean, P1 was kind of in the situation that eUnited was in as well. They barely were able to steal away a game because of a backdoor from Ryu. They had a good team fight in the later stages of game number 2, even though GCU was ahead. But GCU had the mental fortitude to come back into that one, but just could not seal the deal in that final game.
This time around, they do have a lot of powerful tools to secure themselves, as MadLife says, "Hey guys, I'm back. You guys notice?
Guys, I'm here.
I'm playing.
Bing,
I'm playing
bing,
again.
I'm here. Guys, pay attention to me." But that's what you have to do when you have the Moo Cow Alistar.
Yeah, everyone does that.
He's like,
It's too good of an emote not to use.
He's showing that even though they subbed out Lion, the happiness and cheerfulness that he brought to our player cams are still there in game.
Yeah, absolutely. Santorin also on the Sejuani pick, something that was banned against him relatively heavily in the P1 series. Gets his chance on it this time around. You have that Kalista with the Alistar. You can brute force bot lane plays super aggressively here. eUnited also has the ability to do that, and a little less level 6 reliant. One of the scariest things is a Jarvan coming in on the Lantern on a flash EQ gank from a Thresh. So eUnited, no slouches in playmaking either this game.
So we'll see now if eUnited's more aggressive playmaking kind of composition is going to be able to go toe-to-toe against Goldcorn United, who may be content to kind of sit back and farm this one out a little bit. You do have the Renekton on the top side from Solo. We have a Kalista and a Corki combination, so if one of those marksmen gets transitioned into the later stages of the game, you're going to be able to kind of go toe-to-toe against the Tristana pickup, who will not have the extra damage and the extra on-hit healing and everything that was provided from the Lulu pickup. They'll be in a little bit more of a precarious position, though the later game's still kind of tending to favor it.
We'll have to see. I think, generally speaking, eUnited, just with that Tristana and the power it has over the Kalista in the late game, probably still favors eUnited a little bit in front-to-back team fighting, but GCU's front line is very big with the triple tank, essentially, team comp to eUnited having 1.5, maybe 2 if you really want to count the Jarvan that way. So while they might, chew through tanks a little faster, they got a lot more tanks to get through.
You see GBM getting aggressive against Fly here, putting the miasma down so you can't exactly Valkyrie away, but Fly does not want to turn tail and run. Instead, throws out the phosphorus bomb and puts down the Gatling gun and starts trading back and forth with GBM. So we see both of these mid laners once again getting aggressive with each other and up and in their faces. Whereas on the top side of the map, actually Licorice was a bit of a push going on against Solo, but a big wraparound coming in from Santorin. Has to flash away, Steadfast Present with pots already, but he winds up getting stunned twice, once from Renekton, once from Sejuani, and first blood to Solo.
Really nice combination there by GCU. Dandy is in the area. Looks like he wants to try and punish a potential invade. Still very risky to do, and a great play. Down the bot side, some action coming in. GCU getting aggressive down here as well.
Yeah, eUnited was pushing in, but the other ones are going to be pushed back here. Definitely has to hop away, but on the top side, Sandy's going to get stunned up as he tries to flag and drag, but Licorice over the wall gets a stun against it and gets the revenge kill on Santorin. Solo, though, finds himself the recipient of double buffs as Dandy goes down.
Licorice, unfortunately, does not get his red buff back. He's going to be down a buff there to Solo, but a very different game than what we've been seeing so far. So much more aggressive by both teams. GCU looks like they don't want to go quietly into the night. Solo on this Renekton pick, already at 2 kills. Hasn't even gone back and shopped yet. He's going to have a nice item waiting for him in the shop. And then, like you said, down the bot side, look at this, more headbutt.
Oh, definitely gets knocked out of the rocket jump as well, so he has to burn the flash.
Loses the flash there, not actually able to trade back that favorably. Alistar with that sustain that comes in through his passive. Going to be able to regen up, as well as Rikara having a Doran's shield here. Relatively safe bot lane itemization choices, but still winning these trades very heavily.
Yeah, so the early game going in favor of Gold United, at least for now, but this is Dandy trying to punish Santorin for getting a little bit too aggressive after they picked up a kill.
Yeah, you see the EQ knock up by Dandy, stunned out during. Licorice gets the follow-up over the wall with the stun after teleporting in, but Solo's there to finish off Dandy. Ends up a 1-for-1 trade, but the problem is both of those kills did in fact go on to the Renekton, who has not shopped yet, as well as the double buffs. Soon he'll be able to go up there. He has the teleport advantage for now as well. He can either go back to lane with that or potentially try and hold it to abuse for some of that action that's going on down the bot side, maybe get a level 6 dive. We'll have to see what he chooses to go for. 1,800
gold in Solo's pocket. As long as he has those double buffs ticking, he doesn't necessarily need to go back and shop, because Licorice cannot go toe-to-toe with the red buff on the Renekton. Level 6s will be coming in just a short time as well. Up here, so the Dominus being popped will mean that Solo gets a little bit of extra damage and more sustainability against this Poppy. So Licorice, a little bit worse of the wear on the top side of the map. The bottom side, though, despite burning a lot of their summoner spells, eUnited feel content just to stay aggressive here, as Mad Life is going to limbo underneath that hook there. Zazel actually goes one way, definitely goes the other, and even though Mad Life got the headbutt off, definitely is able to jump over the wall.
Look at this. As the great Afro Moose says, just pressure in the lane.
I guess that's all Alistar's doing here.
Yeah, well, I mean, look at it. He ran up once. Zazel flays preemptively, doesn't actually do anything. He runs up again. Zazel hooks preemptively, just jukes that out. And then Zazel has no abilities to try and really help out with the Tristana. The Lanterns are actually not very effective versus an Alistar who can actually headbutt or pull you out of it. So Zazel gets split up over the wall, has to run around. CS advantage starting to get built for Rikara. Mad Life getting subbed back in this game, already having a monster performance.
You're making support sound so easy.
I mean, it sounds easy when you say it like that, and then you get in there and you walk forward and you actually get hit by the play, and then you get hooked back in, and you're an Alistar getting auto-attacked by 2 ranged champions. It's not quite as easy as it looks.
That's more the experience I'm familiar with. But Mad Life here definitely showing that he brings a bunch of veteran presence into this bottom lane matchup, and even though he's a melee support against kind of like 1.5 range champions down here, and the Kallista's a little bit shorter range and historically a bit of a worse matchup into the Tristana. You mentioned the sustain and just the amount of crowd control and the ability to knock them out of Tristana's usual safe escape paths has gained the advantage for GCU on the bottom side of the map for the first time this entire series.
It's something that's something eUnited needed to eventually fall behind in, because GCU needed to keep eUnited from getting ahead in. GCU constantly losing that. Even when they had the small advantages, yes, they were able to like take a turret or something like that. It was never actually holding the Tristana down that much. You would hit her power spikes relatively on time and then take over the game. And this time around, actually getting some good trades, getting some summoners out. Definitely Flash is still unavailable for another couple minutes here. Would like to see GCU make a big concerted effort, maybe on the first package timing, something like that.
That will be available in just a couple of seconds, and it looks like that fly actually going to be donated over a blue buff before he decides to even think about picking up that one. So Santorin will donate the buff over to his mid laner, whereas on the flip side, Danny has not made his way back down onto that side of the map. Instead, going for some counter jungling, so the blue buff's still up for him. Definitely going to get headbutt pulverized up. Zazel actually in the front line is going to eat the stun. The box goes down. They're trying to get some damage out on the Mad Life, but still have the Fate's Call to keep him relatively safe. The explosive charge does wind up going off, and Mad Life stays healthy.
Still, that's a good trade out of eUnited overall. If you can trade the box for the Fate's Call, generally that's going to favor you because it stops the initiation potential that comes in from the Callista, and you can farm safer for a little bit longer here. You know, we're saying we want to see GCU force another play down the bot side here, but that's one of the things that they've struggled with so far as their time as a team, where they don't really always punish as aggressively as they need to be able to. Yesterday in the series, we did see them when they got an advantage in the bot lane go in a couple times and find some kills, but it didn't consistently blow the game open or anything like that.
So now Gold Coin United have the advantage on this top side of the map. I want to see what Solo can do on this one. He's been able to save his teleport. Licorice actually has his back and available right now. And if Gold Coordinator are able to get the advantages that they need on the bottom side of the map and are able to start contesting objectives like that Infernal Drake that they have, Solo's going to be a huge factor on this Renekton. Even in the series against P1 yesterday, that one of the, I think it was the fourth game on his Renekton, and he was able to kind of go toe-to-toe against the later game carry that Arrow was playing. I think it was the Tristana game they actually wound up winning. He was a force to be reckoned with, and they were sieging towers down around the 20 to 25 minute mark because of how much further ahead he was than his counterpart in the top lane.
Absolutely, and going to be able to get an early Black Cleaver in his favor. It's going to stop Licorice from being as healthy. And Licorice still doing a decent job holding in here, just 13 CS down in a matchup that can be kind of tough to play. That got influenced early on. You know, this is as good of a situation as you could hope for after giving up that first blood.
It's also interesting to kind of see the different angles that they're trying to attack each other from. Like Poppy wants to get a stun, and Renekton wants to be able to get a slice and dice through the different minions and have like an escape path or an entry path, as we see more straightforward fighting up here. GBM and Fly running at and away from each other.
Yeah, I land my Q on you, I run and press E.
I have my package and therefore run faster than you.
Still some cute positioning tricks as we see Danny try and get onto Santorin there.
Yep, the flag and drag combo does not wind up landing, and Madlife actually getting his roam on here on the Alistar, moves up and actually goes into GBM. The cleanse is immediately used. Paralyzing Gaze, turn this one around. Splash out from Santorin, a flash away from GBM. Fly tries to flash over the wall. GBM puts his dancing shoes on. Madlife flashes forward, trying to get the last auto attacks down, but he's going to wind up falling. GBM stays alive. Zeyzal and Dandy, though, are getting extremely low, and one more rocket from Corki will seal the deal. The hook goes a little bit wide, so there's no re-engage from eUnited.
Such a dangerous fight there down the bot lane. Madlife just barely gets kited out by GBM, giving a kill over the Cassiopeia, but on the flip side, Fly was able to hop the wall and eventually find a kill back onto Dandy, a 1-for-1 overall, and a lot of whiff skill shots during that. Apparently during all that skirmishing against the junglers, we're seeing Solo decide to open up onto Licorice a little bit there, chunked him out very low. Got a lot of work done on this turret. Actually going to grab the first turret of the game solo. Now up to a 2,500 gold lead here.
Solo gold for Solo in his solo top role on this Renekton. Huge gold advantages for him, but on the bottom side of the map, it was eUnited that are able to turn around a roam coming in from the side of Gold Coordinator and actually get some much needed gold onto GBM, who is going to have to be a bigger factor in the later stages of this game now that there's no Lulu to help with the Tristana.
Yeah, and I gotta say for Zeyzal, this guy has missed a handful of skill shots here in the course of the game. They gave up the Kalista pick, they take the Thresh to separate that kind of powerful combination, but in this skirmish, he missed two pretty crucial hooks here. Danny does also miss the EQ combo, so not quite working out well for them. GBM's in a dangerous position there. At the same time, apparently, definitely opened up onto Rakara, able to get his flash. And then here, already one hook missed. Gonna be able to save for a second there the Lantern onto Dandy. And then GBM kites this out. Very well played by him. They go back here onto Dandy, eventually get that kill. And then once again, misses another hook here as the guy is trying to escape. If he lands that, that gets GBM in range to land a Q and a couple E's. Probably ends up winning that 2-for-1. Ends up shooting it wide once again.
A couple of missed skill shots from both sides here, mostly on the side of eUnited, means that they're only able to trade kills in that situation rather than come out the victors of that. And you also have the Renekton, as you mentioned, completed Black Cleaver, has the Ninja Tab he picked up as well, and he's just kind of roaming around from the top lane down into the mid lane. Gold Coin United want to be the ones that position and jockey themselves for this Infernal Drake. They do have the gold advantages once again in this game, 2.3k in their pockets over their opponents of eUnited right now. The vision control, though, not quite where you normally see GCU liking it, so it doesn't look like, even though they have everybody down here, doesn't necessarily look like they're willing to start this one off. Instead, want to maybe get a pick first, but the miasma goes down from GBM on the fly. He's the one that lands the damage first. Madlife trying to catch down to Dandy, but a flag and drag from Dandy keeps him alive. Glacial Prison actually follows through. Zeyzal once again whiffs a hook on Santorin that could have been the re-engage. Licorice barely misses the stun against the wall, but the Cataclysm goes in from Dandy anyway. Definitely trying to get involved onto Santorin. The explosive charge will not kill the Sejuani, but the Fate's Call is also used to keep Madlife alive. He pops the Unbreakable Will. Nobody goes down, so there's no dragon fight to ensue.
No dragon fight yet. Still both teams posturing around this mid lane currently. And that was such an intelligent play out of eUnited, but the execution was just flubbed too hard to actually find a kill there. As we see eUnited continue to force down onto this dragon. They're going to be able to get the Infernal Dragon as GCU face checked it a little bit too slowly here.
Yeah, that's actually GCU looked like they were like, hey, we're going to get the inside track on your mid lane tower, and eUnited said, I call your bluff, you're not going to be able to finish that one in time. So they zone them away from the Infernal Drake and are actually able to take the global objective.
GCU was posturing very aggressively with their tanky front line, but Licorice found an angle to eject both backline members out of that fight, and so Santorin stood too far in the pit, but the hook misses wide once again. Zeyzal missing that one. It allows enough time for Santorin to kite that one out, doesn't actually get dropped down in what should have been a great play out of eUnited here, and it's just a little discouraging to see this constant skirmishing down the bot side that they're not able to execute on.
See GBM picking up his blue buff, and even though eUnited haven't necessarily gotten a ton of their, they've gotten some fights that have gone well for them. They haven't been able to necessarily execute them extremely well. Goldcorn United are still hovering at a decent advantage for themselves, as now Licorice is swapped down into the bottom side. We see definitely now going back, picking up pieces for his Infinity Edge and pieces for his Seal. Not quite as far ahead as he was over his opponent Merkara in the previous 2 matches. But he's going back up to the top side of the map where there is a decent amount of minion wave. Looks like they're going to try to force down that tower, but the swap back from GCU is going to be the match.
Yeah, not going to be able to brute force that one down quite yet. Zeyzal caught a little bit out of position here, getting jumped on by Santorin and Mad Life.
Stuns on stuns as Fly is able to pick up a kill. Now definitely actually roaming down to try to help his support out. Will get chunked out and has to try to rocket jump back over the wall. So it looked like they're trying to make a power play to push down the top lane tower. Zeyzal was a little bit too far forward trying to get vision control.
Moving on his own there, not respecting the fact that GCU was already matching their swap. Sometimes when you're the first one to move, you do have a window of opportunity to make plays on your own because the enemy team is not yet in position, but GCU were in fact ready for that one. They get the kill onto him. Looking at GBM's item choice, once again going for the Abyssal Mask first. He is still against 2 magic damage threats coming out of the mid lane in the jungle, so selfishly a very nice purchase, but once again, almost no physical damage or magic damage on his team comp here to benefit from that increased damage, as well as the fact that the rest of GCU's comp, once you stop looking at just the Corki and the Sejuani, is very, very physical damage heavy. So not quite nearly as effective of a purchase early on this time around. Not quite sure how much I like it.
No. At the same time, we see GCU going for this Rift Herald. Dandy's in the area, as are multiple members of eUnited, but they decide not to contest this one, did not want to really kind of pull the trigger on a team fight around that, so Goldcorn United get themselves the Rift Herald. I believe this is the 3rd game in the road they were going to be utilizing the Rift Herald. We'll see if they actually come out on top utilizing it this time.
Yeah, 2 pretty ineffective cases in the first 2 games. Dropped 1 mid, it got 1 charge off, didn't finish the turret off, got it low enough that eventually they could get it themselves. Second case, dropped it down the lane, GBM killed it, and then killed the turret. It was in the lane it was in. So not the most effective case of the Rift Herald there.
The counter usage of Rift Herald from eUnited is impeccable this game, or this series. Although Licorice going toe-to-toe with Solo still really can't stand up to this Renekton, who now has a Jarm's Fist. They're going to be going towards potentially the Titanic Hydra. We'll have to see if Renekton winds up going for the straight itemization into tank build, or if he's going to be a bit more of an off-tank dealing some damage at first. Santorin is going to want utilizing the Rift Herald pretty soon after taking into this mid lane area. About a half HP tower, so the Herald charge will deal a decent chunk of damage, but not entirely take it down. And once again, GCU do not get a tower for the Rift Herald.
Cute play by Daniel there, smites it before it charges to try and reduce the damage that's going to go onto his turret. End of the day, it's not too much of a damage reduction, but still worth trying to keep that turret as healthy as possible. And this is going to be one of those games, especially with another Infernal Drake spawning, where you're going to see a lot of team fighting. And there's a lot of interaction between the 2 kits available here in terms of Poppy having the Steadfast Presence to stop an engage that comes in from the Headbutt Pulve combo that Mad Life is going to look for. Same with Sejuani's Charge, the Slice and Dice. Flay as well being a very good tool for kind of negating those if you time them properly. And so eUnited, while not having as strong of a front line, does have some tools to deal with GCU's engages and hopefully protect the Tristana and the Cassiopeia from really getting into a dangerous position. But GCU with the gold lead currently in a better spot than eUnited is to really make use of that Infernal Dragon. Not much AP on the Cassiopeia quite yet, so the Infernal Dragon not as effective as it would be in the late game because it scales off bonus AP.
Right, and you also wind up having the Kalista now at an item power spike, picking up the Blade of the Rune King, whereas Tristana is still kind of between 2 items and between 2 enemies. Is Mad Life was trying to wrap around potential tower dive. Immediate Buster Shot out of Deathly as well will just keep himself safe, as Santorin was not that far away. But this means the Goldcorn United are going to be going for their 2nd tower of the game on the bottom side.
Yeah, able to continue to grow their lead here. Going to be up around 4,000 after this. Looks like eUnited doesn't want to let this one get away scot-free. Potentially rotating down to punish it. It does scare GC away from the turret, so the eUnited will protect that for now, as well as get a little bit more vision control for this Infernal Dragon that's going to be spawning in 40 seconds.
And so they definitely don't want to seed pressure on the bottom lane with the second Infernal Drake spawning. If you get 2 stacks of that, GBM's not having a ton of ability power on his Cassiopeia will be a little bit more mitigated, and when he actually starts building towards, he went Morel Namakan as his second item in the previous game. We'll see if he winds up doing the same exact thing here, but once he winds up getting that, the cooldown reduction, the ability power, and the double Infernal Drake will start hitting extremely hard on these squishier targets of GCU, if he could reach them. The Renekton, kind of a pseudo squishy at this point in time, doesn't have a ton of tank stats. It has gone for the Tiamat next, so it looks like he might be going for Titanic Kaiser, going for a bit more damage and split push threat here.
At this point in the game, he will still, because his damage is relatively high, be terrifying if he does find a way onto a backline member of eUnited here. So while he'll die quickly, he will probably also hopefully take someone with him in this fight for GCU. They're going to start this Infernal Dragon off.
And they do have the Callista, so they have a little bit extra objective controls. GBM actually having to flash away from Alistar's engagement. Danny going to the Cataclysm and flashing on immediately. Zazel's actually kind of stuck in the Cataclysm with everybody as Ricard is able to pick up the first kill. Licorice teleports in, Keeper's Verdict is used, but he flashes into a wall. The heal has to be used by Deathly to try to keep him alive, but he's going to fall. Fly Valkyries forward into her paralyzing gaze, though. He tries to get one more rocket off, but the Missile Barrage will not steal a kill onto GBM. 2 kills picked up for GCU.
And that's exactly what we're talking about. GCU's front line just being so much stronger than eUnited's. They're able to start that engage off with the Mad Life Headbutt Pulve combo, and then he used his ultimate and sits in the middle of that fight the entire time, getting dropped down to only half health. eUnited is not able to match that. Licorice goes down, as well as Zazel. And now with that, GCU saying, we don't need the Infernal, we want the Baron.
Yeah, this is a very un-GCU-like call here. Very little vision control besides the control pit in the control ward in the pit. Dandy actually coming in, trying to get the kill onto Santorin to stop the smite, but Ricard is going to be the one rends him through and takes all those stacks off of Baron, though. Santorin will wind up falling. The poison and the Baron coming through, so GBM nets the kill.
GBM nets the kill. GCU still low health. You see eUnited pinging down to the Infernal Dragon. If they're able to get down there in time, they might have secured themselves a late game scaling objective while also protecting the Baron. Looks like they're kind of grading out for both right now. They drop the turret down to below half health. Zazel gonna escort the Cassiopeia to the Dragon. No smite available, though. This could continue to be a scrappy situation if GCU does not want to give this one away freely.
There's no smite available for either side, but it looks like eUnited will be able to get the Dragon down. They're trying to hook down onto Fly, and he's going to wind up falling. Definitely gets the shutdown onto him. Ricard and Mad Life are on this side, and Solo is on the other. Mad Life actually going to get hit up here. He's going to get flayed backwards, and he's going to get hooked as well. Definitely gets another kill, and eUnited are picking apart GCU.
They punish GCU's greed there. They want to go for Baron after only killing 2 members. All the carries were still alive for eUnited. It's not very late in the game. They don't have a great Baron team comp. It takes them too long to do it. eUnited's able to collapse. They trade 1 for 1 as they do it. They also get the inside track. Taking a look at how all this started with that Dragon fight, you see Mad Life go in first, gets pulled back out, gets thrown back in again, pops his ultimate, and Deathly and GBM are just stuck trying to DPS through him as they've already lost members of their team comp. Mad Life's relatively healthy. Licorice tries to kick 2 of them out of the fight, but it's already too late. This fight is completely gone in GCU's favor.
And eUnited, though, are able to salvage the situation afterwards by going for a contest on that Baron pit fight where Dandy gives up his life, but Santorin winds up falling, and eUnited are actually able to capitalize on the low health bars of that and then win a fight right after that. So Goldcoin United, as I mentioned as they were going for the Baron attempt, a very un-Goldcoin United-like move. It kind of reeks a little bit of desperation at this point. They are 1 game away from being knocked out of the promotion tournament. They have a very powerful Renekton. They don't necessarily need to try to force down these objectives. They can play around Solo, who right now is just still taking it to Licorice. Slices, the dice gets knocked up by the Steadfast Presence, but Goldcoin United, they had this low HP tower from the Rift Herald, which they will eventually take down. So they've been able to garner themselves some gold back in the lead, but I guess they're just testing their limits at that point to see how much they could get off of that.
Yeah, and that's the problem, is it could have been a great situation for GCU where you kill 2, you get the Dragon, and then you grab that mid turret and you get a reset off. And off of that, you would be about 5,000 gold ahead with an Infernal Dragon to match theirs, and then you can start setting up this Baron pressure with your split pushing Renekton down the bot side. They try and instantly go for the Baron. That doesn't work out. They give up some kills, and then they lose a lot of damage on their mid turret. I believe it might have gone down, actually. And then on top of that, they lose the Dragon. Fly seems like he gets a little anxious. He gets way too close and ulted by the Cassiopeia. And as a result, eUnited has closed this gold gap only to 3,000, which is still significant. And GCU are, at this point in the game, stronger. but they're losing momentum, and eUnited's carries are starting to come online.
Right, the big factor is that you've given gold over to the carries of eUnited that you didn't necessarily want them to have. Specifically, GBM, now 300 gold over his opponent in Fly, despite Fly having an extra kill and a little bit less CS, about 40 deficit here, so that's a decent chunk. But more importantly, you also have definitely now completely caught up to Rakara on the bottom side of the map.
All right, this was two things that were going great for them. Now, the only thing you really have is that Solo still has pressure over this Poppy, but it's still not enough to get a solo kill. I mean, you saw what was going on in that fight down the bot side. Poppy can deny the dash to make sure that she remains positionally behind the Renekton, so she never has to worry about having to get chased down the whole lane. And then even if that does start happening, and Poppy has a bit of a panic button in the ultimate to just eject him off of her, and then she can run away. So it's very hard for a Renekton to find a solo kill in this kind of matchup.
Yeah, we see Licorice here just taking it now to Solo. Solo still has a lot of damage. Poppy going to be ever increasing the damage that her Hammer Smash can just throw down because of the percentage of HP damage that it provides. So if Hammer Shock winds up landing on the Renekton, who's building Black Cleaver, Titanic Hydra, and now only is starting to build resistances, Poppy can actually win some of these trades. Now the Warmog's armor as well coming into play. Poppy can just disengage, walk around, regen up to full, and then continue to fight Solo.
Bit of a surprising item purchase there out of Licorice, just because it does match up to Renekton's strengths of regen, but you don't have as many resistances as you might want. Now, might be getting collapsed on by Fly, gets the flash stun.
Yeah, so there's the flash stun. Actually flashes forward, gets the Keeper's Verdict on the Fly. The rest of eUnited are trying to collapse on the rest of GCU. Licorice over the wall, the miasma is there! Solo is dashed into a snake pit, and GBM picks up the kill. On the opposite side, Dandy jumps in with the Cataclysm. Zazel flashes forward, he hits the hook onto Santorin. They're trying to turn on the GBM, but he's staying alive and kiting backwards. Definitely's gonna get the spears pulled out of him, but he takes Rakara with him. They're trying to move forward onto GBM, and Fly actually comes out ahead in that one, and somehow GCU, they turn this around. They win the fight.
eUnited gets way too far ahead of themselves. Licorice had used everything, just barely kiting out away from Solo. He barely gets out of there. Fly has to use his ultimate, and so even though, yes, you have killed the enemy team's top laner, yours is also out of the fight. It's essentially a 4v4, and they feel like they're in such a power position that they just brute force that engagement. You still have a Sejuani and an Alistar to chew through, whereas you now only have a Thresh and a Jarvan, and as a result, GCU's carries are able to deal with that engage. They also find GBM and Deathly, who are positioned too far forward, feeling like they can start hopping through and snowballing through this fight.
And we also saw Tristana trying to zone away. The Fate's Call was already used to save Mad Life in this situation, and the Glacial Prison actually misses as well, but it pops on Deathly after Renekton goes down, so he's already half health when they start this fight.
And this was a fight that they didn't need to take. They could have completely avoided it. Now you see Deathly flashing in there, gets stunned up right as he does it. He goes down, GBM is not able to kite away, doesn't have the tools available. eUnited ends up losing 3 for 2 at the end of all of that. Still not the end of the world, but it could have been a 1-for-0 where you heavily punish and outplay their aggression down on the bot side of the map.
GCU once again starting up on this Baron. Still relatively healthy, but everybody is here. Mad Life trying to just play zoning duties.
They got
the rest of eUnited are coming in. The teleport is coming in here from Licorice. The hook lands on Santorin. They had to force them away from this. The teleport does complete from Licorice, but now it's teleport advantage for GCU.
Nice play out of GCU overall. They don't want to risk a fight there. The Baron was healthy enough that even if Kalista continued auto-attacking, maybe you secure it, but eUnited would have pulled the trigger on that engage. You would have been in a bad spot. We see Mad Life potentially in a bit of a bad spot now, but either way, you get that global advantage out. You can put that Renekton down on the bot side again. Still relatively stronger than the Poppy. Clear a minion wave and keep setting up vision around this Baron. And with the Kalista, you have to be terrified if you're eUnited, because if you don't react quickly, they can rend it out and get it for free. If you do react quickly, you might teleport it on.
Well, one of the things we forgot to mention too is they could also send Fly to start stacking up kills and CS on this Corki. Trinity Force and Rapid Fire Cannon picked up Sorcerer's Shoes and pieces for his Infinity Edge. He has teleport available as well, and well, he doesn't have the package up right now, but the package will also help him really close that gap when it comes to kind of the 1-3-1 setup that GCU can opt into.
It's a bit of a strange situation, because if you put your Corki down the bot side, yes, you will probably be able to pressure that Poppy, but you lose a lot of pressure around your mid lane, because then the only damage dealer with any ranged abilities is a very short-range Kalista. And that kind of enables Deathly and GBM to get very, very aggressive. I would expect to see them run forward, but if they don't do that, and Fly has time down here on the bot side, he can start taking turrets by himself.
And there he goes. Fly taking down a tower at the same exact time, though. Minions and GBM team up to take a tower on the top side of the map, though it's an inner tower that eUnited lose and an outer tower that GCU lose, and GCU bumping up their tower lead now 4-2.
eUnited just looking to trade gold a little bit there. Want to inflate their carries items as best they can. But they do have to be careful because every time they lose a turret down the bot side, that does enable GCU to threaten to take a base. Maybe Fly learned something from Ryu yesterday, tries to go for a backdoor, who knows?
The backdoor Corki is a real threat, especially when you have teleport on the Corki.
Yeah, even easier.
So a little bit easier as eUnited are moving in to try to clear out some vision control. We see GCU. But Mad Life and Santorin have definitely been playing around that a lot more in this game compared to the first two when Wyan was in. But also playing, it seems weird to say, yes, they're putting more wards down and contesting vision more, but they're pulling the trigger on things like those Baron fights without having set up all the vision they normally require.
And they do have a lot more tools this time around. A Sejuani, Alistar, Kalista has more engaged than I think anything we've seen out of them this series so far. A lot of times it was a lot of skill shot CCs, which are great if they land, but if they don't, you don't get that fight start. Here, you can't stop an Alistar from getting thrown at your face through a Fate's Call. You know, that's going to get thrown at you either way. Maybe they miss, but either way, that fight has started.
And we already seen that Zeyzal's hooks on Thresh have kind of left eUnited out to dry in some of these situations where if one of those landed in the middle of a fight or just around the corner from a skirmish, they could have turned that fight in their favor and maybe been able to secure themselves a gold lead. Goldcoin United are currently the ones who have that in their favor, about 4,000 gold in their advantage. This is the first time we've seen in this entire Best of 5 series the fact that Goldcoin United past the 25-minute mark is still in the driver's seat gold-wise. In
the driver's seat, as well as has the advantage of the global and split push going for them. eUnited feeling the pressure this time around, going for some hooks, but Zeyzal's way out of position.
Yeah, he is really far caught out. He wound up hooking down onto Rikara, but it looks like the teleport is going to be channeled in here from Solo. The Renekton's coming in. The Fate's Call has been utilized to try to save Mad Life. Throws him back in. Only gets the pulverize down on the Licorice. He tries to headbutt out, but he gets stopped by the steadfast presence. Everybody on eUnited is still alive as GBM picks up the first kill. Danny's going to flag and drag himself out of there. The carries are wailing away on Solo while Poppy's in the front line staying alive for I don't even know how long. She flashes out and stays alive longer. Definitely gets the reset. Hops back in. One more shot on Mad Life will not seal the deal for a kill, but eUnited come out ahead.
There is that hyper late game tank that we were talking about, and Poppy was able to take so many Kalista auto attacks, a million spears in him, still doesn't go down, eventually gets the knockback to deliver Solo to the rest of eUnited. They're not done yet. They're going to try and force down this Baron. There's no smite available for GCU, and all 5 members are alive for eUnited.
There's just the 2 carries here, and Alistar moseying his way back from base. That's an eUnited Baron in Game 3 when they're already ahead 2-0.
Huge advantage here for eUnited. They're going to slowly be able to get this gold lead back. GCU wants anything they can find in return, trying to find this Cloud Dragon here, but not much of a consolation prize. A couple really key interactions that I was talking about happened in this fight. So first off, Zeyzal gets opened up on. Not great, obviously, but that's fine. Licorice ejects the damage dealer out, and they go on to Mad Life. Mad Life goes back in, and Poppy puts up the steadfast presence. So Mad Life tries to use his headbutt here, but doesn't go anywhere. It just gets knocked up, and they're able to focus him down. Then the Miasma goes on to Sejuani as well, so she can't take a Q out or anything. Now both members of the front line are low. Solo goes in next. He starts getting focused down. Licorice did such a good job tanking on the other side of the fight that he's able to kind of take his E back, both as an escape and knocking onto the Renekton. So they get another kill there. Definitely wants more. He's hungry for blood, but they've had enough of it.
Well, the Baron buff upside of eUnited are able to finally take down the outer tower on the bottom side of the map, the last remaining outer tower for GCU. We did wind up seeing that fight that Licorice still ate a lot of those Corki rockets. Just that he's such a tanky member of the team that he just does not wind up going down. And his health bar is relatively large at this point in time with that Warmog. 3,559 HP as he's doing on the top side against Renekton in a 4-1 split push situation for eUnited. Hook lands by Zeyzal! He may have missed the early ones, but he's coming up clutch in the late game. Kalista goes down, the tower goes down, and eUnited are knocking on the door.
Yeah, and GCU don't have a great way to really clear waves. They only have Corki as their wave clear. They have a ton of engage, and you would love to see them pull the trigger if possible, but without the Kalista, there's no chance they can do that. eUnited senses blood in the water, going to grab their first inhibitor of this game.
And Corki's trying to wrap around with a package. Fly here is going to be found up by Licorice. The inhibitor winds up falling, and eUnited, now they've caught a Corki out of position. He has to try to use the package just to get out of there.
Huge play by Fly. By Zeyzal, excuse me, catching out onto Rikara. Fly loses his package, a pretty important power spike down while he was looking for that flank. And eUnited are officially, yeah, they're officially back in control of this game now. They have the double Infernal Dragon. They've outscaled. They're going to be able to take this turret down as well with that Baron buff on them. This game might be coming to a close pretty soon here, as well as the series.
Yeah, so they take another tower down, 6 now in favor of eUnited compared to the 4 that Goldcorn United have. Shot themselves out to a 2,500 gold lead, and they could be looking to sweep their nemesis of the Challenger Series. Every single Challenger Series final in 2017 has been Goldcorn United versus eUnited. Everyone has gone in favor of GCU 3-1. eUnited were in this exact matchup in the promotion tournament last split, and they exited the tournament and have lost to Envy. This time around, Goldcorn United find themselves in this elimination matchup, backs hard pressed against the wall, facing down an opponent that they've never lost a series to.
Yeah, absolutely, and definitely, again, having a monster performance. They get the Tristana this game for the 3rd time by leaving up that Kalista, a bit of a risky trade. It wasn't working out that hard in the early game, but once again, 3rd game in a row, definitely eventually finds his way, get online, has a couple big team fights, and might be delivering eUnited their first victory after, in a lot of those previous matchups, kind of getting, not taken advantage of, but almost exposed, whereas he has all these great KDA numbers, and they destroy a lot of the lower tier challenger competition, but when he had to play against the LCS teams and when they had to play against GCU, he was unable to have the same influence that he had. But this time around, huge games for him.
Definitely coming up big. And we had questions for GBM too. His Cassiopeia in the previous game was like 1-1-9, didn't necessarily die a lot, but didn't provide the same kind of DPS to complement Deathly's Tristana. And we thought it was a lot about Zeyzal's Lulu, buffing up the Tristana, keeping Deathly alive. Deathly would get caught out and eUnited would have to cede objectives. This time around though, GBM, 4-1-5 for himself, has definitely put on a show on this Cassiopeia into the Corki matchup.
Great games for GBM, someone who's sometimes criticized, rightly so I'd say, for being too aggressive and looking for too many plays or not respecting the enemy team's plays. But this time, this series, he's found a lot of really good looks that have helped his team out. And I think Licorice is the other guy you have to point your finger at as someone who's really stepped up here. In that bot lane escape, played it so perfectly, flashing out of the Renekton range to land the ultimate onto the Corki to make sure he knocks out the damage dealer so he can escape, taking his E over the wall to the Gromp, all these great plays. The Poppy pick itself being one that we only really see out of eUnited. It's actually a great champion in this meta the more you think about it because of the way the Steadfast Present works with things like Gargoyle Stoneplate. You get bonus resistances when you drop below 40% health. You pop your Gargoyle Stoneplate. With that, you have so much resistances if you're in the middle of a team fight. It's nearly impossible to kill you.
Zeyzal's been going fishing over the wall, found himself an Alistar, and they're actually able to use that. Just chunking out Mad Life is enough to wind up working down that mid lane tower. They've been bouncing around between the two and keeping all these waves pushed up. Another hook winds up landing. Looks like they're trying to go against eUnited. A huge knockup out of the Alistar. Dandy has to flash away, but definitely GBM untouched. Glacial Prism was used, but the Keeper's Verdict keeps everybody away from the rest of eUnited. They're able to knock down their second inhibitor of the game. Looks like they're going to turn tail and run because Fly's Corki still packs a punch with those missiles.
GC, you can see that their team is still relatively strong. eUnited has to play these fights well. That time led to a giant dog pile of tanks on top of each other right in front of that inhibitor turret, or inhibitor, excuse me, and eUnited have slightly more damage. They have a little bit more range. They were able to not kill the front line of GCU, but burn them down low enough they had to disengage, and that gave them positioning to grab that inhibitor.
I'm going to give you permission to utilize the term pig pile as long as Sejuani is involved in the fight.
All right.
Now that I know what it means, because I had no idea that was even a thing, but I appreciate the dog pile. But eUnited have all gone back to base. The Baron buff has expired. They spent the gold that they had waiting in their pockets. There's going to be an Elder Dragon coming up. There's a lot of goldos in their pockets. Oh, yeah. 5,500 Baron power play gold swing in their favor. The Elder Dragon is available. And, I mean, GCU can't let this go over because that is a double Infernal Drake eUnited who are already in this gold advantage and in this lead. Yeah,
Baron comes up 30 seconds later. So if they grab this, it's going to be a very easy time for them to grab the Baron as well. This feels like a little bit of a last-ditch stand here for GCU. Santorin gets hooked.
The hook lands on Santorin. He gets flayed back onto the Miasma. The explosive charge is there and flies on the opposite side, though, getting zoned up by Licorice and GBM. He has to package out instead of going in for some damage. Now definitely taking chunks out of solo. Dandy trying to go forward. Locks down onto the front front line. The base calls used Glacial Prison onto GBM, but he's not taking any damage from Mad Life. Definitely goes forward, takes down Rakora. The damage dealer is gone. Fly is trying to run away. Definitely leads forward. One more shot. Double kill for Tristana. All of the damage from GCU is dead, and I think their hopes of making it out of the promotion tournament are soon to follow.
eUnited destroy their longtime challenger rivals in Gold Coin United and stay alive in the promotion tournament here in a 3-game sweep.
eUnited 3-0 over Gold Coin United. They're saying that they're the only new faces left in this promotion tournament. 3-0, it's gotta feel good to beat eUnited after getting 0-3'd by Team Liquid. They do the same to their longtime rivals here and will advance to tomorrow's matchup.
Anyone who watched yesterday's broadcast has to be so confused about the outcome of this series. eUnited got decimated by Team Liquid. GCU was in a hard-fought 5-game series versus Phoenix One. You come into here thinking GCU should win this series, and they don't even look like they had a chance. eUnited completely tear them apart off the back of Deathly's Tristana.
Yeah, Tristana, all 3 games for Deathly being a huge factor. GBM on his Cassiopeia, 2 of those games, also putting up huge numbers. And just the big, beefy front line that they were able to combine with. We said Dandy has kind of been a carry jungler in the past. That was his play style. When they put him onto things like Gragas and stuff, he wasn't able to have the same kind of impact. But when he teams up with Licorice to keep those backline carries alive, and when they team up with Zazel, whose job is either to help with the engage or keep their carries alive and kite it out for forever, they found a winning formula.
Absolutely. GCU's got to be crushed. That's so tough. How many times they were so close to getting these 5-game series in their favor. Once again, yesterday came up short, and then today ran out of gas. Maybe they didn't have the best game plan. Either way, eUnited was able to take this series.
GCU, that'll be the last that we see of them in the promotion tournament this weekend. They will wind up exiting after almost reverse sweeping Phoenix One, but not having, like you mentioned, kind of running out of gas and not being able to reverse the sweep, instead being swept here by eUnited.
Yeah, and I think it came down to who adapted better from their game plans that they had coming into the tournament. I think you saw eUnited get exploited by Tristana pretty heavily in their series versus Team Liquid. They identified that. They start picking it wherever they can. GCU, at the same time, they also adapted, but they ended up on like Zyra in the bot lane and a lot more early game focus compared to the late game that they had in their previous series, and it feels like that might not have been the right call to go for that kind of focus.
And it almost kind of seems like these two teams have kind of swapped play styles as well. We said that coming into the Challenger Series finals, eUnited was the ones that were making calls and maybe being a little bit too over-aggressive. They were still had hints of that in their play style during this series, but as you can see from like some of the compositions they were able to craft here, they opted into some of these later game team fights. They opted into the play style of, hey, if that doesn't work, we have an insurance plan this time, and we don't need to hard press for all these advantages.
It's just intelligent play by them, adapting to what their comp is supposed to do. When they had Dandy on the aggressive, crazy champions that, that's what we expect out of Dandy, they did play more aggressive over the course of the regular season and a little bit in the playoffs. But here, playing very controlled, standard team comps for the most part and executing on them very, very well. They also still threw a couple curveballs out there. We saw things like the Camille. We saw things like a jungle Poppy. So eUnited showing that they have a lot of tricks up their sleeve, and whoever has to play them tomorrow in the final elimination match better do their homework.
That's right. So to hear more about that eUnited 3-0, let's send it on over to Degon and Azael.
All right, thank you very much, Tom. And a 3-0 sweep here for eUnited. They were able to go ahead and clean it up here.
Definitely not what we expected. I think coming into this series, GCU has been pretty dominant over eUnited in the past, and you're kind of expecting, especially coming off of very different series yesterday, for GCU to be the one looking dominant, for them to kind of move smoothly into the final day, but instead they get 3-0'd and their hopes are done.
Yeah, EU was able to go ahead and fight off the ghosts of promotion tournament past. And let's go ahead and take a look at this, the draft here, because finally, Callista goes unbanned. Call here by Hermes to Hermit to let that go through. And because of that, GCU gets baited into picking it, and it leaves up so much for the other side for eUnited to pick up.
Yeah, certainly. They're able to get a very strong, like, kind of first couple picks of their own. The fact that they're able to get Thresh and Jarvan, two champions which are very often considered first pickable, is a really strong first round. But at the same time, there is a reason that Callista is always banned out, and it's because she can be extremely dominant in the early stages. You can take over lanes against someone like Tristana, and then you have a very good ability to actually snowball that with the engage that Fates Call offers in combination with someone like Alistar. So, while I do agree they gave up a lot over to their opponents, it's just kind of a different approach to the game, right? They're trying to draft early to snowball the game, and they fail.
Yeah, they weren't able to do that. Another reason why I like that, though, is that Thresh and J4, Thresh, Mad Life known for that. In J4, Santorin played J4, I think, every single game last series, and that gets taken away. But when we're at the end of the day, we're stuck with yet again another let's wait, let's scale team comp for Deftly, and he's definitely able to do that. Definitely able to do that on Tristana.
Yeah, I mean, all three of their first picks really were first pickable, right? The Thresh, the J4, and the Tristana is a pretty incredible first round of draft picks that they actually grabbed, and you wouldn't expect very many teams to be able to get that. So it does definitely work out very well for them. Especially, I think that the way that they drafted in this series made a lot of sense for the kind of criticisms that people have had for GCU. GCU was considered the stronger team, against in this matchup, but they're a team that has been criticized for playing slowly, for not being able to be proactive, for not being able to actually push leads and start fights. They're the team that kind of sits back and waits for their opponent to make a mistake. And if you're going to play that playstyle and your opponents are just playing a comp that outscales you, it's very, very difficult because you can't sit back against those kind of comps. And Tristana and Cassio are going to be able to take over.
Well, GCU tried to make some attempts to gank the lanes and make plays, but they don't call him GBM for nothing. Ganked by Mom, able to make some plays here at 1050. He was able to make a nice 2v1 outplay, or a nice outplay, and GCU ended up getting 2 for 1.
Yeah, exactly. And GBM definitely has been very, very strong, I think, for the team in general throughout this series. You can see Deftly pushing Rikara back, and at the same time, GBM barely escaped with so little health, and Mad Life trying to go in and finish him off, but the healing from those Twin Fangs able to keep him alive, able to grab that kill, and they do clean up a couple more.
Yeah, GCU pushing the tempo, and GBM, thank goodness, able to make that play. Zazel not able to connect with that Thresh hook there, which would have shaken things up. GBM might have been able to snowball out of control. And unfortunately, they were able to divert a lot of the pressure and were able to scale up a little bit later. But as the game moved on, Dragon fight around the Dragon Pit area, and maybe eUnited's like, hey, we're feeling a little good. We're making plays with the champions that we have, and that leads to our next replay, 26-20. And you see 80 carry jumping in first, and unfortunately for Deftly, it doesn't end up boding well for him.
No, not at all. I mean, he is going to play this fight pretty aggressively. You can see that eUnited is looking for a heavy engage, and Deftly goes pretty far in. They are going to be able to jump on him, and I do believe he did get taken down. It's one of those situations where it's a trade of kills, which can seem okay, but because they are already taken so much damage on the first parts of the fight that they can't actually stand up and take a 4v4 afterwards. GBM was already extremely low. Fly was very strong at this point. He's able to kind of take over in the later stages of that fight and be a really big force. One thing I did also kind of want to point out and commend, though, I think the itemization from GBM was pretty intelligent. He actually built Abyssal Mask multiple times in this series, and they were running into a composition that had so much AP, and I think that building that Abyssal Mask makes it so that he's almost ungankable in the early stages because he's going up against Corki, which is magic damage,
right,
and then it's also a magic damage dealing jungler. So the people that essentially you're going to have to be dealing with are all really being stopped by this, and it's allowing him the time to A, have sustain, B, have survivability, and kind of scale up to the point where he can be extremely threatening in the team fights.
And speaking of that point, we have the replay here. 31 minutes into the game, eUnited finally finding a fight that they want and taking a 2-for-0 plus the Baron.
Yeah, exactly. And eUnited had been on the Baron, but they turned for the fight as Zazel was able to kind of find a bit of an engage, and it just focused on the front line. You can see that the fight is very split up. They're not able to actually be in there as a team because of a great ultimate from Poppy, knocking some of these members out. And as they are punching through the front line, the fight is going to collapse for eUnited because the carries are relatively safe. They're relatively untouched. You can see that GBM still staying alive, definitely almost at full health, and knocking down those tanks meant that they could actually turn and go for the Baron, which really did secure them a huge advantage.
And so it goes back to the whole wait to the late game or play the early game and push it here. And Goldcoin United tried their best to go ahead and do that, made plays to find picks and snowball out of control, but they weren't able to do that. Looking a little bit further ahead, will eUnited be able to do this against either Team Liquid or Phoenix One tomorrow?
It's hard to say, right? Is it the eUnited that showed up today, or is it the eUnited that showed up yesterday? Because yesterday, they did not look like they could compete even remotely closely with the LCS team. TL absolutely slammed them. Like, those were not close games. They got decimated. Even in the first game, where they were up 5 or 6-0 in kills, they were still barely ahead in gold because TL played such a superior macro game. And if they do have that sort of a weakness, then I think if you try to play a scaling game, a higher caliber team can take advantage of you and can close out the game before you're ever able to get there. So we'll have to see if they're able to actually perform in that level, or if some of their kind of macro deficiencies are going to be taken advantage of.
All right, well, coming back to this series, we had a lot of great performances today, but we'd like to recognize one player who stood above the rest to earn player of the series, and today, that player was definitely dominated in team fights, was able to get himself to the late game, and pop off on Tristana multiple times, all 3 games today.
Yeah, the team definitely put him in a position to carry. They played well around him. They protected him. They drafted big front lines. They drafted the Lulu in at least one of the games. So definitely playing very well around him. And he's kind of rewarding the team for that.
Right.
I mean, you give him the protection, you give him that late game scaling. He's shown the ability to take over the games, and Tristana has really shown why it is kind of the #1 pick so far in this promotion tournament. Has been so highly prioritized, can be effective in lane, excels at killing turrets, crazy threat in the late game team fights as well. So you gotta wonder if teams are going to keep getting it, or if some of the priorities are going to be shifted around. Because yes, Caitlyn is annoying to deal with in lane, but some of the nerfs that she has taken have made her weaker in the late game. So maybe it's a trade-off you're willing to make.
Yeah, plus we got to see Trist beat Kalista in this game as well. But with that match in the books, we're going to join NA LCS 1, where Phoenix 1 and Team Liquid continue their match. P1 currently at match point.